because this is December, I'm going to give you a wrap up of the 8 books that I read in the month of November. My name is Jonathan. This is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. I'm an elementary school teacher who reads middle grade books so I can make recommendations to other people so that they can get the right books to the right readers. November seemed to be a little bit of a lighter reading month for me, and I'll explain why that was in just a minute. Normally I get through about 10 to 12 books a month, and this time I only made it through 8. So that is a little bit lighter for me. I know that can be a lot for some people, but for me it's a little on the lower side. But let me start off by sharing with you the 8 books that I read. The first one that I read this month was a book called The Book of Stolen Dreams by David Farr. And this was a book about a brother and a sister who live in a kind of a alternate reality from ours. There were some steampunk elements. There were different things that were going on. But it was kind of the place where they lived was run by a tyrant who controlled every aspect of their lives. And he was very against children. He was very against reading. There were all of these things that he was against. Well, the brother and sister, their father was a librarian. And one day he got word that a very special and very rare book was going to be destroyed. So he and his son and daughter snuck into the library and stole that book. And they had to get it to safety to keep the tyrant from destroying it. They come to find out that the book is a magic book that has the secrets of immortality in it. And so through a whole series of different events, they have to keep the book from falling into the wrong hands. They run into a family of ghosts. There's all of these different things that happen as they're trying to figure out the secret behind the book and whether or not they should use the secret of immortality that was in the book. I really liked this one. I read it at the beginning of the month, so I had to refresh my memory on it, but I really enjoyed the book. I believe I gave it 4 or 5 stars. Next up, and this book was one that I had made a video about of my most anticipated reads. And that one is called Westfallen Into the Fire. And it is the sequel to the book Westfallen. Now, the story of Westfallen is what would happen if the United States had lost World War II to Germany. And so the United States was no longer America, but instead renamed Westfallen, and what that would look like. And the way the story played out is there were 3 children in 1944 who had a radio. And they discovered that using this radio, they could talk to people in the future in the year 2024. And so they're communicating back and forth, and they inadvertently change the course of history through some things, and then they have to go back and figure out how to change it. Well, in the second book, Westfallen Into the Fire, it turns out they weren't able to change history back because even though they changed one thing, there were other elements at play. And so the children in the future who live in Westfallen are trying to get information back to the children in 1944 so that they can change history back there to keep the future from happening. I know it sounds kind of convoluted, but there are secret agents, there are Nazis that are all happening in 1944. People who you think are the good guys turn out to not be the good guys. People who you think are bad turn out to be the good guys. Meanwhile, in the future, one of the boys, Lucas, who happens to be a Jewish boy, it has to go to a labor camp. So his friend is trying to get him to become a baseball star in order to keep him from being sent away to those labor camps. And the other boy, the one who is trying to help his friend, he works at a hospital where he meets a guy who was alive in 1944 and who played a hand in all of the events that led up to what's going on. The terrible but wonderful thing about this book is that it also ended on a cliffhanger. So you think that things are resolved, and then you get to the last page and they are not resolved at all. And so you have to wait for the next one to come out. So this was Westfallen Into the Fire by Anne and Ben Brashares. I listened to it on audiobook. Fantastic. It was really good the way that the narrator told it. I will leave a link to the Audible book if you would like to get that. And if you join Audible, you get 1 credit that you could then use to get Westfallen Into the Fire. But hold that thought, because there might be another one you want instead. Then I started a new series by an author named Ridley Pearson, and this is the Lock and Key series. And the first book is called The Initiation. And this series is about James Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes if they were teenagers going to a elite boarding school in Boston. And they end up being roommates, and James Moriarty's sister, Moira, is also there. She's the one telling the story. And there are all of these elements at play. James and Moira's father, he ends up dying in a tragic accident. And so they're trying to discover what was the cause of that accident. And of course, Sherlock Holmes is there doing Sherlock Holmes things. So he doesn't think it was an accident. And James Moriarty is beginning his descent into becoming the criminal mastermind that we know him from the Sherlock Holmes stories. So this one was really good. I enjoyed it. I have the other 2 in the series that I checked out from the library that I will be getting to here shortly. The 4th book that I did this month was the Arctic Incident by Owen Colfer. And this is the 2nd book in the Artemis Fowl series. And if you're familiar with Artemis Fowl, he is a teenage criminal mastermind. He's a genius. He has a bodyguard named Butler. And in this particular one, Artemis is looking for his father, who went missing when his ship sank. And then one day, Artemis gets a ransom note saying that, hey, give us this amount of money and we'll give you your father. Meanwhile, down in the fairy world, where Holly, who, if you've read the first one, you know she's a fairy who does not like Artemis for many different reasons. There is a traitor in the fairy world. The goblins have gotten some terrible weapons, and the fairies think that Artemis is behind it. So they go to him, and he says, I didn't have anything to do with it. So they work out a deal so that they're able to help him in his attempt to rescue his father. This was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was good to be back in that world. There are a lot of books in the Artemis Fowl series. First one was very enjoyable. This one, not quite as good as the first one, but I did still enjoy it and will probably be continuing on with the others. Then the 4th book that I read was a book called The Greenglass House by Kate Milford. And this is a story about a boy named Milo who lives with his parents, and they run a rather unique hotel. It's kind of a place for people who smuggle goods. And so they come and they give them rooms, no question asked about what their business is. And Milo is looking forward to Christmas break when the bell rings. And then it rings again, and it rings again. And there's all of these people who are not supposed to be at the hotel who show up at the hotel. And then there's a freak snowstorm and everybody is stuck inside. He can't get rid of them. And then things in the hotel start to go missing. And then there's all of these clues as to, who stole the items, why they stole the items. And every single person seems to have a story that is somehow related to the Greenglass House. And they all interweave and mesh together. They're all centered around a smuggler who used to run in those parts. It was a very interesting book. If you are familiar at all with the Westing game, this book had a very similar vibe where everybody is connected together somehow, but nobody really understands the connection. There's a lot of books in this series as well. So if you try this one and you like it, there are more that you can take a look at. Dragonborn. This was a new book to me. I saw someone on YouTube made this recommendation. So I recommended it to my daughter, who in turn said, "You really need to read this, Daddy. This is a great book." So I picked it up, and actually, I really did enjoy it. And the book Dragonborn is about a girl named Alex who there's some really strange things happening, and her mom is a little overbearing. And then one day she meets a stranger in the woods who says he has information about her dad. And then all of these people show up at her house, and her mom comes home unexpectedly and freaks out for obvious reasons. There's strangers in the house. But the strange man, his name is Olafus. He offers to take Alex to a special school because, as it turns out, Alex is a dragon. She is, I think they call them the slumberers because she's in her human form and doesn't know that she's a dragon. And so there's a mystery behind why her dad passed away or went missing. She goes to this special school where there's other children who are learning to be dragons, and she's trying to figure out how to turn into her dragon form. While all of that's going on, there is a dark dragon who is seeking something called the phylactery because it can lead them to the souls of all of the other dragons in order to build an army. This one had very strong Harry Potter vibes. It was almost if Harry Potter, instead of being told, "Harry, you're a wizard, Harry," if they had said, "Alex, you're a dragon," that's what this book would have been. It was great. I really, really liked this book. There was, there was a lot of the interplay between the kids. There were some really tragic moments where I won't go into the tragic moments, but some things were lost that Alex didn't want to lose. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm certainly hoping that this was the first in a series because this was a great book and I enjoyed reading it. Then, and if you remember just a minute ago, I said that if you join Audible, you get a credit so that you can get an audiobook. This is the one that I would use that audiobook credit on. And that was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this book was narrated by Andy Serkis. Now, if you know who Andy Serkis is, he's the one who played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. And so the story of The Hobbit is about Bilbo Baggins, who's a very ordinary hobbit, thank you very much, who doesn't do anything. And one day, Gandalf shows up at his door. And then the next day, there's a whole bunch of dwarves. And Bilbo finds himself being recruited as a burglar who is going with this traveling party to go to the oh gracious, I can't remember what it was, but the dragon Smaug has taken all of the dwarves' gold, and they want Bilbo to help them get it back. And listening it to read by Andy Serkis was amazing, particularly the part where Bilbo meets Gollum and gets the ring. I'm not spoiling anything, everybody should know this. But to hear Andy Serkis read the Gollum parts in Gollum's voice was fantastic. It was so much fun to listen to. So if you do join Audible, or if you happen to be a member of Audible and you want to get an audiobook, this would be a perfect one to do that for. And then finally, the last book of the month was the first book in the Wings of Fire series, and that's by Twee T. Sutherland, and that's called The Dragonet Prophecy. And that introduces you to 5 dragonets, Clay and Glory, and I think Sunny was one of them. I can't remember all of their names. But these dragonets, these small dragons, were prophesied to help stop a war. Well, they're tired of being locked up, and so they try to escape, and well, that causes all kinds of problems because they get captured by Queen Scarlet, and Queen Scarlet forces them into her arena fights, and so on. This book was mostly about Clay, who is what they call a mudwing. In the Wings of Fire series, there's a whole bunch of different dragon types. And so this is told from Clay's perspective. I'm going to be honest, not exactly my favorite book. It dragged at times. Obviously, I think that this was written for a younger audience than a elementary school teacher like myself. Um, so I may or may not continue on with the story. My daughter loves these books. That's why I picked it up. I have students at school who absolutely love them. So I wanted to see what the fuss was all about. And I may continue. There's lots of other books that I'd like to read too. So we'll see how it goes. Now, at the beginning of the video, I told you that I only read 8 books. 3 of them were audiobooks. So in reality, I only read 5 books, actual physical books. And part of that was because I was in a bit of a reading slump. So that ate up a lot of my reading time this month, which is why I didn't get through nearly as many. So those are the 8 books that I read in the month of November. And I want to know down in the comments 2 things. 1, have you read any of those books and what were your thoughts on them? Or 2, what was something that you read in November that you really, really enjoyed and you think that I should take a look at? Leave all of that down in the comments. And as always, my name is Jonathan. This is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. Thanks for being here.